the warning ignored. The Imperial command ship Dominion hovered in silent orbit above Earth, a monolithic shadow blotting out stars as it readied for conquest. Within its vaulted war room, Grand Marshal Xiron of the Galactic Empire addressed his assembled commanders, his voice smooth with disdain. "Another primitive world to add to our collection," he said, tracing the blue-green globe projected before him with a clawed finger. "Their weapons are laughable, their ships obsolete. We shall bring them into compliance within a cycle." A low murmur of agreement rolled through the room. Victory seemed inevitable, almost too easy. Only one figure remained silent: General Kale, the grizzled alien who had served through campaigns most of these younger officers only read about. His scales had dulled to gray over decades of war, and deep scars crossed his face like ancient rivers. Kale's golden eyes, however, remained sharp and wary as they fixed on the image of Earth. When Xiron finished, Kale spoke. "Permission to advise, Grand Marshal?" The room fell silent. Xiron waved a hand lazily. Kale stood. His voice, though calm, carried an undercurrent of something rarely heard among the Empire's highest ranks: fear. "Do not provoke Earth's women," Kale said. "If we value our forces, if we value the Empire's pride, we must heed this warning. Never, ever attack them first." Snickers rippled through the chamber. Xiron leaned back in his throne-like chair, amused. "Women," Xiron repeated, the word heavy with mockery. "This world's females are as fragile as the rest of their kind. What threat could they possibly pose to the might of the Empire?" Kale's jaw tightened. His mind flashed back to that fateful campaign decades ago. A different world, a different Earth, when he had led a simple mission to seize territory. It had been the women who turned the tide. Mothers, daughters, scientists, warriors. They fought with desperation beyond logic, organizing resistance cells, turning household items into lethal traps, hacking their own technology into devastating weapons. Kale remembered the fire in their eyes. Not just survival, but something fiercer: defiance. "I witnessed it myself," Kale said gravely. "You will not see them coming. Their strength is not in their weapons. It is in their will. Provoke them, and you will find yourself battling a force you cannot crush." Xiron's amusement soured into irritation. He hated having his authority questioned, especially on the eve of a conquest. "Your caution is noted, General," he said curtly, "but your fear is misplaced. This planet will fall like all the others." Kale bowed stiffly, hiding the frustration simmering beneath his calm exterior. He had said his piece. It would not be he who suffered the consequences of arrogance. The meeting dissolved into preparation orders. Deployment plans were finalized. Major cities would be seized within the week. Ground troops would occupy governmental centers, with special attention to influential leaders, a surprising number of whom were women. The Empire viewed this as a curiosity, nothing more. Down on Earth, in the crumbling shell of what had once been a municipal library, Captain Lyra Vance reviewed intercepted Imperial transmissions. Her dark hair was tied back, her body armored in scavenged plates of ceramic and steel. Her eyes, keen and calculating, flicked over the information projected before her. "They're targeting civilian leaders first," she said to her team. "Specifically women. They think we're vulnerable points." Sergeant Maeve, her second-in-command, grinned savagely. "Let them think that." Outside, the resistance fighters trained tirelessly. Women from all walks of life, teachers, engineers, doctors, farmers, drilled with makeshift weapons and repurposed alien tech. They were not soldiers by birth, but they had been forged by necessity. Lyra allowed herself a small, grim smile. "They don't know what they're walking into," she said quietly. She tapped a button on the console, transmitting a final encrypted message to the scattered cells across the globe. "Prepare for them. Make them regret coming here." As the stars above shimmered with the silent approach of Imperial forces, Earth's women sharpened their minds, honed their weapons, and steeled their hearts. War was coming, and this time, Earth would not stand idly by. The spark of resistance. The first Imperial dropships screamed through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. their sleek black hulls glinting against the midday sun. They descended without warning, slamming into cities across the globe. Streets buckled under the impact. Shockwaves shattered windows for miles around. The invasion had begun. In the ruins of downtown Chicago, Captain Lyra Vance watched from a crumbling rooftop as enemy troops deployed in perfect formation. Tall, imposing in their armor, the Imperials moved through the streets with mechanical precision, rounding up civilians with casual brutality. "They're sweeping the sectors faster than we projected," Sergeant Maeve said, her voice tight in Lyra's earpiece. Lyra narrowed her eyes. "Good. Let them think we're running scared." She turned from the rooftop and motioned for her team to move out. The resistance fighters, many of them women armed with scavenged rifles and homemade explosives, slipped through the city's labyrinthine alleys, invisible shadows against the urban decay. They knew these streets better than the invaders ever could. In a hastily assembled Imperial command tent, Commander Varek surveyed the initial reports. His heavy armor whirred as he moved, his voice clipped as he addressed his officers. "Minimal resistance so far," Varek said. "Continue sector sweeps. Priority: locate and capture female leaders. Disrupt their chain of command before it solidifies." A junior officer hesitated. "Sir, are we certain the females are of significant threat?" Varek barked a humorless laugh. "They're weaker, easier to subdue. Once the symbols fall, the spirit crumbles." At the back of the room, General Kale stood silently, observing. His mouth twisted into a grim line. They had learned nothing. The seeds of their downfall had already been sown. Meanwhile, deep beneath the city in an abandoned subway station, Lyra convened with other resistance leaders. The walls were covered with maps, schematics, and lists of Imperial troop movements scrawled in frantic handwriting. Dr. Elena Park, a former MIT robotics professor turned resistance engineer, outlined the plan. "They've underestimated us," she said, tapping on a holographic model of the city. "They rely on centralized command nodes. Take out a few key control hubs, and their local forces will be blind and deaf." Maeve cracked her knuckles. "Perfect. We'll hit them where it hurts." Lyra leaned over the table. Her voice was calm, but every word dripped with iron resolve. "We don't engage them head-on. We bleed them. We make them chase ghosts. We make every street, every building, every corner a battlefield." The women nodded. They were tired. They were scared. But they were also something else now. Unbreakable. The first strikes were small. A supply convoy derailed by a hidden explosive tucked inside a dumpster. A patrol ambushed by snipers shooting from shattered skyscrapers. Communications hubs fried by homemade EMP devices crafted from salvaged microwave parts. The Empire responded with force, but their retaliation only fed the flames of resistance. Each civilian imprisoned fueled a family's hatred. Every woman dragged from her home created a dozen more willing to fight. Commander Varek grew increasingly frustrated. Reports poured in of sabotage, assassinations, and ambushes carried out not by professional soldiers, but by ordinary women, teachers, nurses, mechanics, who refused to submit. "They are disorganized rabble," Varek roared during a strategy meeting. "Crush them." General Kale, standing nearby, spoke for the first time. "You misunderstand them," he said quietly. "They're not rabble. They are fire, and you have only thrown oil into the blaze." Varek dismissed him with a sneer. "The fire will burn out soon enough." Kale said nothing. He knew better. He had seen it before, and he knew exactly how wrong Varek was. In the dead of night, Lyra stood atop a water tower overlooking the battered cityscape. Fires flickered in the distance. Above, the Imperial warships loomed like dark gods. Yet down below, in the shattered ruins, life stirred. Sparks of rebellion. Women setting traps, coding viruses, building weapons from the ruins of their old lives. Lyra's hand tightened around the radio transmitter. "This is Captain Vance," she said, her voice low but steady. "Phase 1 is complete. Phase 2 is green. Make them bleed." Static crackled as responses came in from across the city, and then from beyond, from London, from Tokyo, from Johannesburg. The resistance was no longer a few scattered cells. It was an army. A storm was coming, and it had been born from the fire the Empire thought they had already extinguished. Fury unleashed. The city burned. From orbit, it looked like a smear of red across the continent. Fires raged unchecked through Imperial camps and devastated supply lines. Communications blackouts crippled coordination. Sabotage and uprisings flared like wildfire, unstoppable and spreading fast. Commander Varek stood in the shattered remains of what had once been his primary command hub. Black smoke curled into the evening sky. His helmet was cracked, armor scorched from a bomb hidden inside what he had foolishly assumed was a refugee vehicle. "Status report," he bellowed. The answer came from a bloodied adjutant, struggling to stay upright. 17 command posts lost, sir. Over 30% of ground forces cut off, and insurgent attacks increasing hourly. Varek slammed his fist into a nearby wall, leaving it dead. This was impossible. Earth's women were supposed to break easily, not organize a planetary insurgency. In the ruins around him, he saw what they had done. Rigged drones turned into mobile explosives. Children's toys hiding transmitters that jammed Imperial targeting systems. Medical clinics that doubled as war factories. And at the center of it all, Captain Lyra Vance. Her name had become a curse among the Empire's ranks. Deep underground, Lyra and her team planned their next move. Dr. Elena Park, surrounded by scavenged Imperial tech, grinned as she presented their latest creation, a pulsing emitter capable of disabling an entire platoon's armor systems at once. "Built from their own tech," Elena said. "We feed off their arrogance." Lyra nodded approvingly. Around her, a dozen women, scientists, hackers, mechanics, refined their weapons, wrote new codes, prepared the next blow. Resistance wasn't survival anymore. It was offense. "Next target is the Dominion," Lyra said, tapping a map of the orbiting Imperial flagship. "They think they're untouchable up there. Time to teach them otherwise." Gasps went up around the room. Maeve leaned in, grinning. "About time we took the fight upstairs." Lyra smiled grimly. It wouldn't be easy. But then, nothing about Earth's women was easy when they were under attack. On the Dominion, Grand Marshal Xiron seethed. Holograms of battlefields flickered before him, each report worse than the last. His empire, his invincible armada, being humiliated by civilians. "Where are the reinforcements?" he snapped at his advisors. "Still weeks away, Grand Marshal," came the nervous reply. "We underestimated the severity of local resistance." Xiron turned slowly, fixing them with a cold, burning glare. At the edge of the chamber, General Kale watched in silence. Finally, he spoke. "You were warned," Kale said, his voice low but carrying across the room. "Earth's women do not break. They build. They fight. And when cornered, they become something the Empire cannot defeat." Xiron turned on him. "They are mere primitives," he shouted. Kale shook his head. "No, they're survival made flesh. And you have given them no choice but to destroy you." The room fell silent. Even the boldest commanders looked away. Outside the viewport, plumes of smoke from Earth's cities rose like defiant fists into the sky. That night, Lyra led the first strike on orbit. Using a captured Imperial shuttle, retrofitted, weaponized, and cloaked by stolen tech, her team blasted through the Dominion's outer defenses. On board, chaos erupted. Explosions ripped through power nodes. Gravity stabilizers failed, sending soldiers crashing into walls. In the confusion, Earth strike teams carved a path toward critical systems. In the heart of the flagship, Lyra placed the final charge against the ship's AI core. She keyed her communicator. "To every woman fighting, every child hiding, every soul resisting, this is for you." The bomb detonated. The Dominion's systems flickered, shuddered, then collapsed. Across the planet, Imperial forces stumbled as their central command blacked out. And for the first time since the invasion began, the Empire realized the truth. They hadn't been fighting a disorganized planet. They had been fighting a rising tide, a fury they themselves had unleashed. In the darkness of the collapsing flagship, Kale stood at a viewport, watching escape pods eject like fireflies. He spoke quietly, almost himself. "You should have listened," he said. "Never provoke Earth's women." And below, in the battered cities of Earth, the world rose as one. The Empire would not break them. No, they would break the Empire. The Empire falls. The Dominion fell from the sky like a wounded beast. Chunks of burning metal rained into Earth's atmosphere, scattering debris across oceans and continents. Where once the Imperial flagship had blotted out the stars, now there was only smoke and ruin. But the war was not over. Scattered, furious, and humiliated, the Empire's ground forces dug in, determined to crush the uprising by brute force. In cities and forests, across deserts and frozen plains, battles erupted as Imperial squads waged a desperate last stand. Yet the resistance had already grown beyond anything they could contain. In the ruins of central Chicago, Captain Lyra Vance led the final assault. Her team had doubled, tripled in size. Farmers wielding alien rifles, engineers piloting captured hover tanks, students launching EMP mortars cobbled from scraps. They fought not just for survival now, but for total liberation. Advanced by cells, Lyra ordered. Small units, fast strikes. Break them piece by piece. The resistance moved like a living organism, agile, unpredictable, deadly. Imperial walkers were brought down with hacking spikes driven into their circuits. Armored troop carriers exploded under barges of homemade missiles. Entire regiments vanished into mazes of booby-trapped tunnels and ambush zones. In the chaos, Maeve charged a forward Imperial command post, her voice roaring over the gunfire. For Earth, Commander Varek, bloodied and desperate, barked frantic orders from a reinforced bunker. Hold the perimeter, reclaim the sectors, wipe them out. But his commands went unheard. His communications were severed, his forces isolated. Morale crumbled with every lost outpost, every missing patrol. And worst of all, they were terrified. The women they had once deemed weak were now a nightmare stalking their every step. Every corner could hide a bomb. Every voice on the radio could be an enemy hacker. Every child, every grandmother, every civilian was a potential weapon. Varek's hands trembled as he realized the truth. The Empire wasn't hunting Earth anymore. Earth was hunting the Empire. At dawn, Lyra stood atop a battered Imperial walker, the flag of the Resistance, a white handprint on black cloth, fluttering above her. Behind her, the city survivors emerged from the rubble, armed and ready. Not just women now, but men, children, the old and the young, a people united in their fury. She keyed her loudspeaker. "This is Captain Lyra Vance of Earth Resistance," she announced. Her voice rang out over occupied zones, bouncing from hack transmitters to Imperial channels. To all remaining Imperial forces, surrender or be destroyed. Silence answered. Then, slowly, across the war-torn land, Imperial weapons began to drop. One by one, soldiers raised their arms in surrender. One by one, the occupiers admitted defeat. High above the battlefield, General Kale stood aboard a battered escape vessel. He watched Earth's surface through a cracked viewport. He had seen many wars end in his lifetime. Most ended with cities in ash, civilizations erased. But this was different. This was the fall of an empire brought low not by might, but by will, by the unbreakable spirit of a people underestimated, by the fury of women who refused to be conquered. Kale turned to his junior officers, those few survivors who had fled with him. "Mark my words," he said. "History will not remember us as conquerors. It will remember us as the fools who dared to provoke Earth's women." And somewhere deep inside him, despite the defeat, Kale almost smiled. Because for once, the Empire had met something greater than itself. Months later, Earth rebuilt. Cities rose again from the ashes, stronger and wiser. New alliances formed, old rivalries faded. Technology salvaged from the Empire accelerated their growth. But the spirit of the Resistance remained at the heart of everything. In the New World Council, a memorial stood in the central square. A simple plaque bore the names of the fallen, and beneath it, a single quote. "Never, ever provoke Earth's women. Lyra visited often, standing in silence among the crowds. She had fought not for medals or statues, but for the right of her people to live free. Maeve stood beside her one morning, watching the sunrise over the rebuilt skyline. "Think they'll come back?" Maeve asked. Lyra smiled grimly. "Maybe," she said, "but if they do—" She tightened her gloves, eyes gleaming with hard-earned steel. "We'll be ready, and this time the whole galaxy would know. Earth's women were not to be trifled with. Ever again."